We stand here together, hands joined, hearts joined, minds joined, and voices united as one people. We pray that the hearts and minds of our leaders may be opened, that they may be granted the capacity to listen, the courage to respond, and the will to act with fairness, accountability, and responsibility. We pray for the mothers and fathers doing all they can to support their children, whose futures depend on the choices made here today.
Hello and welcome to Behind the Scenes. My name is Zilungile Mbele and I am your host. Join me as I take you on a journey behind the scenes, showing you the world of film and television. I will be talking to everyone involved in the process of making TV and film. Crew, cast, producers, broadcasters, lawyers, and everybody unpacking what happens behind the scenes to get you the stories that you love on screen and all the content and all the glitz and glam that you have come to love. Welcome to Behind the Scenes, where we talk about the reality behind TV and film. Today we're talking to a very famous actor turned producer, Wandile Molebatsi. And disclaimer, he is not here in his capacity as a representative of the Independent Producers Organization. He is here in his personal capacity as a producer. Wandile, thank you so much for joining us, for making time. I know how busy you have been lately.
Yeah, no, it's been a bit crazy, but I had to come. Thank you so much for the invite.
A lot has been happening in this industry, right? But I think I want to talk first about your transition. What made you decide, Uguti, you want to go from acting to behind the scenes to producing? What was
the process? I've always loved motion picture, and I've always loved creating stories and being amazed at what films can do to people. And for a long time, I was in front of the camera. And I think it really started to germinate when I was at Wits. Obviously we get encouraged to go into all different spheres of filmmaking and understanding what each department, each person, each role does. And I fell in love with the idea of being in charge of the destiny of my career, in a sense. And being a producer is also very stressful, but also exciting in the sense that you find films and then you go out and you try and make the films become a reality. And so for me, it felt like a natural transition. And also I was blessed with really great business partners, who had different strengths, I guess. And so at that time, we needed to get a producer bone in the business. And I just put my hand up and I said, guys, I love this. I love working with money. I love encouraging people. Yeah, But also I love the idea of getting something on black and white and convincing other people why the story is important. And that's why I fell in love with producing.
I think that's also what I love about producing is you randomly be walking in the aisles of a supermarket and then an idea hits you like this.
Correct.
And then you start writing and developing it and then you have to go find money to make it happen. It's very stressful. I mean, you guys on set as actors, you have your challenges, but like also producing is a whole new...
Completely. And I think for me, that's one thing that, talking to Luke or to Delon or to Wood Pips, talking to anyone who's been a producer or is a producer, I always say that you must never forget how important the process is for an actor. It might be a very different process, but it's a critical process as well, Like when you think about... I love this quote that I got from Morakane at Tiisetso when she said that filmmaking is probably one of the best team sports she's ever seen, and you can't diminish anyone's role in that. And sometimes there is this push and pull between the producer and the actors where you're like, get into makeup, get breakfast, get into wardrobe and let's go shoot, But there's a process that every actor, that every grip person, there's a process to create their art. And you have to make space for that and make allocations for that where you can. And I've realized that respecting everyone on set is so critical. Because if the grips guys are having a bad day, you're all going to have a bad day.
If your PA
is having a bad day,
you are going to have a horrible day on set.
If they have a bad day, you're all going to have a bad day. And I think that's one of the things that I love about filmmaking, that it's such a collaborative art form,
You can't do it solo.
No, you can't.
I want to talk about your work at IPO.
Yeah.
I know I said you're here in your capacity, but it's also part of what you do.
Absolutely.
What made you join IPO, Independent Producers Organization, and what the work that you guys do as the IPO?
I joined the IPO because I realized that there's a level of organization that we need for our sector. And over and above that, there was an experience I'd had being on a bigger international productions where there was kind of this, here while you're having breakfast and having coffee, people would talk about SAG ATRA, the BFI, equity. And there was a sense that there's an industry that we're involved in, and any industry across the world needs to be regulated. And that's one of the things that I loved about joining the IPO is that for a long time, sometimes we feel like South Africa is happening to us when actually we should be happening to South Africa, and I felt quite important to me to get involved to solve some of the problems that I was seeing. And through the IPO, I felt that there was a real way to do that. Like I'm the chair of the Transformation, Skills and Diversity Subcommittee. And what's very important to me is transformation in the supply chain of filmmaking. So what I mean by that and what I hope the IPO has allowed me to do is to say, okay, guys, there's a 26 billion rand sector here. How much of the 26 billion is going to black makeup artists, is going to female DOPs, is going to black gear companies? And that became a very important discussion for me, especially as I became a father, where I started to realize that actually this thing, I love it, but it's in industry, it needs to be regulated as such. And that the IPO has been an incredible platform for me to engage with policymakers, engage with funders, engage with BFIs to say, look, you need to understand how the funding cycle of film works. Because without that contextual understanding, very often you find producers losing their homes, taking their kids out of school because of the funders that they've got don't actually understand how their financing flows. And so that's been very important to me at the IPO.
In America, there's like unionized jobs and non-union jobs, and they've organized, okay, to be fair to us, Hollywood is much older than South African film industry. But they've unionized and they speak in one voice.
Yes.
Recently, the Department of Labor is proposing to have freelancers recognized as employees, right? And we as an industry are not speaking in one voice. There's CPI saying, nope, let's not do that. I don't know what IPO's stance on it is. That there's MCA saying, yes, let's do this. There's SAGA saying, yes, let's do this. And they when you engage policymakers and the powers that be, they always say, what is the collective voice? And at this stage, it feels for me like we don't really have a collective voice. And there's pros and cons for us being recognized as employees. And as a producer, I would say to crew, go for being recognized as employees. Sizoye kukuni exploit. Sizoye kukuni abuse as producers.
For me, like a lot of policy that government writes, there's about 80% that makes a lot of sense, that's great. And there's like a little 20% that we need to just polish up and get right, One thing that I really believe in is that we need to have sectoral determination.
Yes.
Because without that, we're not able to regulate ourselves. And, one of the things that any government has to do is create a regulatory framework in which business and lives can flourish.
Which we don't have in our industry. Our industry works on guidelines.
Yes.
Our industry works on guidelines. There's no regulation. There's no sectoral determination, like you're saying. Hence, we tend to not speak in one voice.
Pull in different directions. And my thing is that really there's a level of, I want to say the word seriousness, but I don't want to be condescending. There's a level of professionalism is a better word that we need to adopt as a sector. We were at the South African Cultural Observatory launch of the economic impact of our sector. There's 1.5 million people that are employed in the sector. So that goes across the value chain of makeup artists, grips people, location scouts. And that also touched on other skills like painters, set builders. There's a huge amount of people that are part of our labor force. And what's important is that while we regulate that, there needs to be some kind of understanding that this sector is not like agriculture. This sector is not like construction. This sector is not like maybe the financial services sector.
You can't have a blanket situation
100%.
because even within the sector itself, the unit person and the production person, the framework that protects these people and governs them is not the same.
Correct.
And for example, unit is 14 hours, right? They're on set 2 hours before everybody is on set to set up, and that's necessary.
Yeah.
Right? They can't come at everybody's call time, and they still have to wrap the set up.
Right.
And then where do we draw? But that still can be regulated. At such a point in time, then we then have overtime, paid overtime,
100%.
or whatever. There have to be intervals of break. What I normally do on my sets is I will have, if budget allows, crew unit will have like 5 to 6 people. 3 people do the starting shift, and then the other 3 people join them during the day so that these ones can go and rest, and then they can rep, and then or sometimes we rotate them so that at all times we have somebody on set or unit when we need them on standby, but the other one has the opportunity to rest and recharge because they really wake up very early. If you need them on set at 5, they went to go collect the toilet at 4.
Correct. 100%. And this is what we are as just the Save SA Film Coalition trying to get through to the policymakers, that there is international best practice, and that international best practice can be applied to South Africa. And there's no reason why we need to pretend like with this unicorn that doesn't make movies or doesn't actually engage in the theatrical releases. There is a paradigm that we can work with. And what's very critical for me, I'll say this as a producer, is that, the amount of hours we work needs to be regulated. And the amount of remuneration we get for that work
needs
to be regulated.
Proportionate to the hours we work.
100%. And
production, you never knock off, eh?
No, you never knock off.
You're driving home, and I'm going to talk to when we do the crew episode, I need to talk to... Crew tends to switch off their brains, production, and they want production to think for everybody. And it's not a fair thing to do because we're hired because we recognize everybody's skill and everybody's experience, and we hire you when we're vetting our crew, and we look at those things. And now for a DOP to call me and tell me that the cards are ruined,
you need to help me solve that.
How did you resolve that?
Correct.
How did you? The only time I need to know that your cards are malfunctioning is if I've lost footage and I need to reshoot something. Then that's the... Or if I need to engage the gear house.
This is part of the importance of having a professionalization of our sector. That, that we're all for trying to ingest as many new graduates as possible. But the level of professionalism or the rate that you pay someone that's been a DOP for 10 years can't be the same as the one who's just started last year. And this is where the nuance of a sectoral determination is so important, is that they need to understand. And also another thing that I have to put in here is that there is this sense that that everyone can do it, and that's not the case at all.
It's such a specialized industry.
Incredibly.
It is open to skilling people and bringing new people who are green, knowing nothing, and train them up. But it's such a specialized...
100%.
When I was at AFDA studying, I majored in producing and writing. I did like a term of camera work, and then I decided this is not for me. I can switch on the camera, I can do the basics, but camera work is a specialization.
100%. And when you try and blur those lines, you get into trouble. And there's a certain amount of experience you get from the hard yards of being on set at 2:30 in the morning until 2:30 at night. And the point is that we need to try and get the Department of Labor to understand that we need to regulate that, yes, but can we be engaged in how it's regulated?
Yes.
Because from outside in,
that was my submission. My submission was that, yes, we want to be recognized as employees because we need UIF, we need all of these protections, we need legal protections because there's productions that you work hard and they don't pay you. We need regulation in terms of overtime and the projection of the PCEA. However, there has to be a customized approach to this, and they can't do it on their own. They need us. Us as producers, we need to be sitting with them. Crew, everybody has to be represented in that. When they do those regulations, because then it'll frustrate us, and then
correct. And that's part of the problem that we've had with the DTIC incentive, is that the policy framework changes, and producers don't know where they sit and how to fit into the new mold that's been declared as a guideline. And the certainty that black producers need is so critical. Black producers need to have the adjudication committee opened again, because when you're a black producer, that approval letter literally becomes a bankable document. Now you can then go to a funder and say, look, I've got this, which is backed by the South African government. It's basically a bond. And you can then back your funding on that basis. Now, if you don't have that, it becomes almost impossible as a black producer to close your financing. And of course, there are other ways to do it. You go raise more debt at the IDC or at the NEF, but all that money is expensive. Now, and as a tax-paying South African, you want to be able to engage this incentive to close your projects. And the other thing I want to say about the rebate, it was very powerful in Parliament, because we got to present to them the actual impact that the sector has. Now, the IPO has gone on a research process, along with some of our stakeholders like Netflix, the Gauteng Film Commission, the SASFED has also come on board. And what this report is aiming to do is to give the policy makers some practical, provable evidence to say, guys, this sector is actually very important. I mean, the report has shown that for every rand the Treasury spends on the sector, we put 5 rand back.
I have a problem with the fact that we have to prove ourselves to be valuable. It's a problem. Bas recognize ma
Yeah.
When they're streaming their parliament sessions, when they're doing the January 8th statement, when they need makeup artists, they need camera crew, they need sound people, they need editors, they need broadcasters.
Yeah.
But Melissa's prove we are important. I have beef with that.
I have the equal amount of beef that you've got. And I think what I've learned over the last year is that if you don't show them what they're not understanding, we're going to end up going to the streets every other week. And what has been a real big eye-opener for me with this whole Save South African Film Jobs process is that there are fundamental things that they were not understanding, which was very encouraging when Chairperson Masina was actually asking the minister, when can you solve this and how can you solve it? Because what we presented to them was a very clear thing. We can absorb young people, we can absorb semi-skilled to skilled labor, and there's a growth path. We were talking before we jumped on the interview, that some of us started, like me, as an actor, or someone started as a prop standby. And because of your experience on set, your earning goes from maybe 2,000 Rand a week to maybe 12,000 Rand a week. And that's because of the industrial nature of the skills training that you're getting on set. Now, that's invaluable. You can't replace that. And the blessing of this country of having sunlight, of having such a young population, of having crew that we've got, getting actors that we've got, you have to use it and gear it to the best of its ability. And right now, the film sector is primed, guys, to solve the youth unemployment challenge.
Let's go back to the DTIC. We were at the march in Pretoria. You looked so tired. Remember, I almost force-fed you. Like, Wandile hambiyodla. Because you looked like you were about to pass out. At DTI, there's a lot of administrative issues that we face as a nation, but we're not going to talk about national issues. We're going to talk about our industry issues. There's a lot of maladministration that happens within our industry, right? With all of these organizations, your DSEC, your DTIC, your NVF, GFCs, all of them, right? But I want us to go into specifically DTIC, right? The fact that the fund administrators are not even filmmakers. They don't understand the process. What is feasible, what is not. And there needs to be a reform. There needs to be 100%. A change of guard there. And like you said, the red tape that you have to deal with, they keep complicating that application form.
Yeah.
They keep complicating it further and further and further and further instead of simplifying it.
Right.
It could be so much simpler. Like NVF has a portal, right? Where we all
MGE's got a portal.
Our documents and our application, and the application form is standardized. You fill everything out in the portal and the information is there and it's backed up. Then they don't have a museum of files, like we do a museum of camera, where they don't know even where to look. You call DTI and you're like, hey, application number, social reference number. They still have to go look for the file.
That's one of our memorandum requests, to say we need to get the red tape addressed, and the red tape. And I think what was great about this march and the sector coming together like this is that we presented practical things. Like a lot of people don't know that in the film unit at the DTIC, there are 6 people that work there. There are 6 people that work there, and one of the things we humbly requested of the Honourable Minister is that could we look at fiscally increasing that number to 35? And the way we did that is that we actually looked around the incentives around the world and said, look, the BFI, the one in the UK, the one in Canada, the one in the States are massive, right? So we can't necessarily pit ourselves to that level. But you have countries like Georgia, you have countries like Australia that have got 3 times the amount of people that actually work on the applications.
You have
and
countries like France who are literally this big,
right,
and they have major structures for art and film.
You know, I saw a report, was it 2 days ago, that CNC, which is the NFF of France, funded almost 70% of the films that were at Berlinale. Now, for me, that's a challenge, because that says that Africans are not investing in their own IP and in their own content. And one of the things that's very important about actually addressing this red tape thing, that sometimes you can come across to like lawmakers that, no, we're trying to make it easier so we can steal money. No, we're trying to make it easier so that we can have reporting that makes sense.
So the money can be accessible, so that we can have proper reporting and metrics that actually work, so that the money we go and spend comes back and then it is reinvested again.
100%.
So there's flow of money and flow of work throughout the whole time.
And the economic multiplier being on paper as an unofficial report. So the company that did the report is a company called Oldsberg. So they do incentives around the world. And this is one thing that we try to stress to all the members of the DTIC, as well as Minister Dow, to say that Cyril talks a lot about global competitiveness, you know, and how South Africa needs to be on the global stage, and we've got all this great financial services sector, we've got infrastructure, we've got all this stuff. Yes, it's great. And we're saying to them, you know, there's 144 countries around the world that have got an incentive. Now, when you've got a combination like we have in South Africa, we've got the weather, we've got the crew, we've got access to locations, we've got the equipment. What that means is that this is an exponential growth area. And we're saying that help us, help you, help us. Let us be in the room that you're writing the policy, because that policy is going to affect us every single day. And we understand where the kinks are. That's what we mean by reducing the red tape. And also, can you increase the people that are in that unit?
And a major percentage of the people that are in that unit must be producers and filmmakers.
100%.
Yes, you need lawmakers and governors
100%.
so that they can satisfy the government red tape
compliance requirements.
And compliance and all of that. But we need filmmakers in there.
Yes.
So that we can advise, Guti, this is what you need, this is what you don't need. A small 2-hour or 1-day consultation with filmmakers and then go and make a policy is not sufficient.
But this is one thing that I do want to say as a producer, not as an IPO member, not as a SASFED council member, literally as a producer, to say it's critical for the practitioners in our industry to get involved with organizations. You know, there is the South African Guild of Actors, the South African Guild of Editors, there's a documentary filmmaker, the Writers Guild of South Africa. And it's important for people to get involved because
the documentaries,
there's lots of organizations that we need to be a part of. Because one thing that's become very clear with the Safe SA Jobs Coalition is, whether we like it or not, we need numbers. We need numbers. And when we can show the numbers, government pays attention, because they realize that actually this thing that I watch at 8:30 generation is not just those 8 people that I'm seeing on screen. There's 100,000 people that actually created that content and puts it onto our screens. And that for me is so important. And I'm not advocating for any organization. I'm saying get onto your phone, look up organizations that support film practitioners and join our organization.
But also their organizations themselves need to make themselves accessible.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
Until I had interest in becoming a producer. I also started off as a first AD.
Yes.
I hate ADing, and I'm very good at it. I hate it though. I started off as a first AD, and then I was like, okay, cool. This is what I studied. I wanted to be a producer until I had vested interest in becoming a producer. Then I learned about the IPO. You
know, Jon Favreau, the guy, he's a very famous American director. He started as an AD. And I can say, I can bet my child's last school fees. Starting as an AD is awesome, because you get line of sight of every department. Yes. So I just want to say this.
And ADs mostly become directors. It's very rare to find an AD that goes into production.
So ADs, ADs in our lives are
helps me.
They make and break of those guys.
My experience as a first AD helps me in becoming a better producer because
100%.
I understand who does what and how much time it requires and all of that. And it also helps me with the budgeting. I can already estimate by just reading. It serves as a safety net. But I was saying, before I decided, okay, I'm going to focus on producing and grow and direct my career path towards producing now, then I found out about the IPO. Right.
Yeah.
I found out about the CPA
Okay.
because I also do commercials as well. But there's unions or guilds where getting in it's so elitist.
Really?
It is so elitist.
That's good feedback.
Yeah, I've never heard or seen a workshop that was run by the IPO or CPA for that matter. I don't think I've ever been able to access the CPA website. When I need the CPA rules, guidelines, when I want to reference something, I'll go to either Kale Crew or Crew Cut's website to find this information. These organizations need to be at VETS, at UJ, at AFDA, at Big Fish Closed Down Shem, at these institutions that teach film. They need to be road shows. They need to be all over the country. I have a sister who did politics, ne? She got into the ranks COSATU. Okay. COSATU is like the organization that all of these other organizations, the nurses, the
NUMs,
yes, all of them, they all under COSATU. Do we have something like that in our industry where all of your SASFEDs, your CPAs, your IPOs, your South African Cinematographers Association, your Guild of Editors, Actors, Writers, where these guilds serve the different sectors within our sector, but then there's a big collective where do we have something like that?
We do, and I think what you're saying is very...
Do we have a COSATU of our own?
That we don't have, because in the labor bargaining has been a hot potato that SAGA has been trying to solve for a long time, and I feel like SAGA, I really need to give them their flowers because we're very close now to getting something finalized, But to answer your question, the closest thing we've got to that is the South African Screen Federation. So under the South African Screen Federation, we've got the IPO, we've got the IBFC, the Independent Black Filmmakers Collective, we've got all those guilds, the editors, the writers, we've even got the stuntsmen. And what was very important with the coalition is that we actually tried to revive that thing again, so everyone, you'll see on our memorandum, everyone is on the memorandum, IPO, Writers Guild, everyone is there, and we're trying to say to the government
that there's a sector. Our equivalent of COSATU would be SASFED. Okay, cool.
So now the reason why I'm really promoting, really advocating for people to join organizations is that the South African Guild of Editors is only as strong as its members, which is why COSATU is so powerful, which is why NUM is so powerful.
Our thing also is that we have no political motivations. The trade unions that we're talking about, they have political motivations. We don't. Tina, we are creatives. We want to be creative.
I can tell you for free that I promise you, film is very political.
It is.
And I think over the last 3 years, we've realized now how political it is. Going to Parliament sort of opened my eyes about the framework we have to work in. And this is one thing that's always been a complaint of government, to say, yeah, man, ninama actors, ni maningi, lo kulma lo, and it's just too many of you, right? We need to get a collective voice. Yes. And the reason why it's political is because we need the numbers. With numbers, elections are political. No matter what you want to think about it, elections are political. Where money moves in treasury is political. Now, with a sector like the film and TV sector, we can promote the youth agenda and the transformation agenda seamlessly. And not because we are just adopting it as something we want to do as a mandate deliverable. We organically do it already. We have very powerful female-owned production companies. We've got incredible black-owned equipment rental companies. And what we need to do is to say to government that of that 26 billion rand, a lot of it is coming and going to black hands. And we have to start talking to our creatives and our fellow practitioners to say, guys, this is a political discussion. One of the things that was very powerful, in the session that we had in Parliament, is when we tried to quantify and show them the power of soft power. The fact that America can sell a dream is not because of Trump. It's because of the American content, I was going to swear now, the American content that they pump into our system. tourism is as a direct result of
A film.
film. And we're trying to get through what we're doing now and the advocacy we're doing with Parliament to get in front of Auntie Pat to say, Mrs. Delil, you know, tourism is literally, we are hand in glove with you guys.
Yes.
When you do a film about Mapungubwe, you're going to have some African American in Atlanta that wants to go to Mapungubwe. When you do a movie about what it's like to get down in Long Street, you're going to have these young kids in Paris being like, yo, I want to party in Long Street. We are a synergetic organization.
You know, in
art, we
Cape
should
Town,
say.
every third foreigner that you meet would have either come to South Africa because they were shooting something, or they know
100%.
somebody that was in Cape Town for a shoot,
100%.
and they saw their statuses and then they wanted to come.
Listen, guys, I mean, practical examples of what film does. You know, and that's not even including the ads that South African tourism can do or Brand SA can do. I mean, that one ad with Trevor Noah, the reach that it had, and we're saying to them now, the ad with Trevor Noah was super dope. Can you do 5 more of those? But more than that, can you think about doing like a 20-minute movie on Kale? Can you think about doing, like, what's this guy? My son tells me about him. I Show Speed.
Yeah.
I Show Speed showed parts of Africa that the rest of the world has not seen. Now, why are we relying on I Show Speed when we've got filmmakers in the country who can do that exact thing?
Can they also give us money? Because, right,
Thank you,
if
Sebo.
I'm busy in development now for a series that happens in and around Joburg. In the series, I have different economic and social classes. I have somebody that lives in the township, go RTP. I have somebody that lives in the upper echelons, go my what estates. I have somebody that lives in the middle complex, Nyana. And then I have a person who starts off as homeless, right?
Wow.
Now, if I had the budget, right, this gives me the opportunity to showcase Johannesburg.
The idea of funding is also one that we as producers, practitioners need to start thinking about a bit differently. You know, there's been a lot of things in the media, in the press about the Canal Plus transaction. And while I don't want to comment on the transaction itself, there is something that we do need to start adopting as producers. The commissioning environment that we've been living in, you know,
It doesn't really work for us.
And one of the reasons why it doesn't work is that when you get commissioned, the IP then sits somewhere else. One thing that has been interesting about speaking to French producers, and I haven't gotten a Canal Plus project yet, by the way, just hashtag, I'm just saying, you know.
But you're talking to them.
No, but we're talking to them because we're speaking to them from like the Hear Me Move days. Like we did Hear Me Move, a film a long time ago, and we're trying to engage with Black, French, Francophone people to get the film out to those territories. And what I found interesting was that for them, commissioning isn't the model. Their model is actually finding some money, then going to abroad to a
But this is what our challenge is as South Africa, right? Is that finding the money is so hard.
Yes.
Right? You've got the DTIC as an incentive right now, which is a very ridiculous rule that DTIC has, is that you must already have secured 10% of what you're asking from them. If you're asking for 5 million, which is not even your full budget, it's a portion of your budget, uzoyithatha be 500,000.
We talk about the role of an incentive and how critical it is for Black creatives and just any creative that doesn't have access to liquidity.
There's a lot of practitioners in our industry who do not have access to funds. And this comes also to, I don't like to racialize issues, but there's a very big parity between the Black society and the white society.
Yes.
As a film industry as a whole, we still have to grow and be developed. However, within the industry, we still have to grow and develop the Black filmmakers.
Yes.
It's a thing, right? Where the experience, your experience as a Black producer and my experience as a white producer is so separate.
Very vastly different.
White producer can call a friend in Germany, can call a friend in the UK or Poland or wherever and be like, hey, you know, and then they have money and then they shoot a pilot.
Right.
When uhambe uyocela ugogo uzoyiqala ngaphi?
Qala kuphi ugogo? Ugogo awungilethele nge-100,000 nyana.
Wake wayibona ugogo 100,000 and access to finance enables you to do licensing.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
It enables you to do the licensing and walk away from the commissioning structure because the commissioning structure disadvantages us on the other hand.
Yes, it does, because the truth is that you don't own the IP. And that we can say all we want to say, we can scream in the streets and all that, but if you don't own the IP, you can't build a library as a producer. And so one of the things that we've asked actually for the DTIC to look at, including the NEF and the IDC and all the different even the lottery, we've gone as far as asking the lottery to please engage, is that fundamentally for black producers, there's got to be a bigger split between grant and loan. And what we mean by that is that there's a portion of liquidity that black producers aren't going to have yet 30 years after democracy. And what's very encouraging is that the government understands that. And the challenge now, the responsibility we have, all of us have as a sector, is to actually get it to hit paper and pen to hit the paper, if I'm making sense. We need to get to a point where the policy then starts to live out the reality.
It's in black and white and it's
black
applied.
And white. And so one of the things that we're suggesting as a Save SA Film Coalition is that can there be certain government funding organizations that do an 80 split, 80% being grant? And the thinking around this is that you need that 80,000 to actually finish the film. You're not using that 80,000 to go have sushi parties at Konka and go buy a Ferrari. You're using it to finish the project. And then they can hold the 20% as the final milestone, which is the carrot that you have to work towards. Now, what's interesting about that is that actually that works in other territories in North America and in Europe. And we're saying that surely, if you understand the Gini quotient we have in this country, which is so terrible, you will do that for black producers and female producers. And they're saying yes. And so now it's the responsibility of the sector to make sure that they do it.
I mean, the parity and the difference between white producers and black producers, it's even if you look at the industry in Cape Town and in Johannesburg, right?
Yeah.
Cape Town industry is very white. Joburg industry is very black. I've worked a lot in Cape Town, right, with commercials, and it's mostly... Yes, there's mostly service jobs with international commercials, but also even the local industry in Cape Town is predominantly white.
Yeah.
And then there's the rates issues. I worked on a local TV production commissioned by a local broadcaster, right, as a production manager in Cape Town. The money that I was earning there per week is what I earn in Johannesburg for the same local broadcaster, right? It was a drama series. I've done drama series. What I was earning as a production manager in Cape Town for a local drama series by a local broadcast company is what I earn in Joburg as a line producer on a drama series.
Yeah.
Same broadcaster.
Now, this is what we have to tackle as a sector. That obviously, the Western Cape has become this kind of weird unicorn where the rates in Cape Town are different to everyone else in the country, and that is a systemic problem for the government because they're saying that you can't have 68% of the rebate going to the Western Cape, and what we're trying to show is that while that money is going to the Western Cape, one, there was also a huge amount of skills transfer that happened, but we need to start to level that out.
Do you know, I think a quick answer I can give to how the money ends up going to the Western Cape is because of the red tape. Remember I mentioned earlier the standardized form portal on the DTI. That form, yes, at DTI, has terminology that you're like, Manjele, and you're like, now I don't have the money to hire a person to do the paperwork for me, right? Whereas producer Van Vuren has the money, right? I'm doing it myself. And then they disqualify you because in the section so there's
no certified ID of the...
Do you understand? They want you... The form wants you to have projections by an accountant, right? A production accountant. Where am I going to find a production accountant for 7,000 Rand a day to do this? And they're not going to charge that do it in one day.
Correct.
They're going to want to read the story. It's a cost. To even apply for the funding is a cost.
Right.
And the people who have access to money are able to do those things.
But this is what we're fighting for now, is one, a digitization of the portal, two, a standardization of actually how money gets flowed. And what we presented to the minister, and hopefully he'll adopt it, is that there needs to be a difference in the application process. It's very painful to know that the emerging or the Black Filmmakers Incentive is one of the least used incentive. And when we said to them, do you know why? They said, no, because you guys are not organized. We said, no, it's because of that little thing called 10% of the escrow. No black filmmaker has got R1 million to put in an escrow and just forget about it while your application is being processed.
Which takes 3 years.
Exactly.
Even when it is approved, you still have to wait. You are on set, They're supposed to have paid the first and the second tranche. They haven't paid the second first. Now you have crew on stand down on set that have not been paid. And now
Yes. But this
and
is...
then you go to the bank, you use, like you said, that letter, you can bank it, you can go to the bank and be like, give me a loan. The bank used to do that. Abasayenzi as easily as they used because of the delay.
And this is the thing, that we're saying to them, the policymakers need to, at the very least, take all practitioners to a 1-month workshop. Because when you write a piece of policy, it impacts the daily life, daily operations of producers on the ground. Now, that again, and I need to stop harping on this is why we need people to join organizations, because without your voice being heard, we can all send emails, you know, when we have a collective voice, like COSATU, when they say, okay, tools down, and the nurses say, okay, we're not going to work today, it grinds to a halt. And I think that's what we got right with Cape Town and Johannesburg, is that for the first time, government actually understood, and like, this is not like a small little industry on the corner, it's a lot of people that are fighting for this. I feel
like our tools down has not been effective. Our tools down will be effective the day there's nothing to watch on screen.
Yeah.
Then they will realize, hey, uyakhumbula ukuthi they first nge-COVID kwathiwa essential workers with just entertainment, and then bagcina banganazinto zokudlala e-TV. Sesenzelwa ama-permit fast. You are shooting today, tomorrow it's edit, the next day it's TX.
Yeah. And this is the beauty of what we do. It's actually, as much as people think of it as just a social cohesion number, it's actually not. Our play is much bigger across the country's value chain. Like the amount of money that gets spent on catering companies, the amount of money that gets spent for petrol going into unit vehicles that are going to go pick up cast. All of a sudden, they start to understand, and like, these people are not just this little thing that's irritating us on the side. And the key thing is for us to be consistent. And the key thing is for us to measure everything. And that's one thing producers and creatives don't like to do. We need to measure everything. How many hours do we spend on set? How many jobs do we create? And that reporting has to go through to the highest levels in Parliament. That's just the truth.
I always have those stats. I have a spreadsheet. I always know at any given time how many people are on my set. I have a suppliers list.
That stuff is so critical, guys.
You know, there's also the challenge of, remember you said earlier on that a DOP who's been doing this for 15 years cannot earn the same as a DOP who's been only doing it for a year, right? And this is also true for producers. There has been challenges where ensuring that the money lands in the right hands. Like when the NFVF puts out a call, every Tom, Dick, Harry and his uncle can apply. Where do we draw the lines? How do we ensure that imali ifikela ezandleni as right and it is actually used for what it is meant for? And also, there's unscrupulous producers. I know a few producers who've done that. You go to another province, Eastern Cape or Free State somewhere, and then and they're not getting paid. And the checking and the balancing of it, the accountability.
So I want to answer that in two different levels. The first is that there is a professionalization that needs to happen. And what I mean by that, like, you know, my brother's an accountant. And he's an accountant, and then he worked for some time. Now he's become a chartered accountant. You went to AFDA. You've got a degree. You actually know what you're doing, and you've got certain amount of years in the game, which means that you're
16 and then some.
16 and then some, and because of that, you've now earned a different level of understanding. What we are pushing for, you know, as the Save SA Film Coalition is a kind of grading. Now, I know a lot of people are going to get very upset when they hear this, but effectively, the NFVF is doing it already. Like, the NFVF got this tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, and that's how they try and separate people. But we're realizing that actually that tiering is not enough. We actually need to get grading. So you have what they do in, for example, the MPAA or the BFI or, you know, Canadian Producer Association. They actually grade producers, and it literally is as simple as that. We're grading you because we understand: can you do a $12 million project? Can you do a $350 million project? Can you do a $1 million project? And the truth is that, and as hard as it sounds, those producers are not the same.
They're not the same.
They're not the same, and they need to be held accountable. And so what's important about where we're, as the IPO, we're engaging an organization called Sakya, and there's also an organization called SA Film Academy. And what we're trying to do is actually encourage people to, like in any industry, go get post-work accreditation. So like, you know, when you're a doctor, you go up and you go freshen up how the pancreas works. When you're an architect, you go and learn about this new cement that does this wonderful thing that dries in 3 hours. Every profession in this world has got refresher courses. And the idea is that we want to get producers to get onto these refresher courses so that they can get to a point where they can say, no, I am tiered at this level. This is important because it also gives the funders confidence to say, look, Wandile, maybe I can give him R1 million because Wandile Shemwa Zamela, so it's something serious.
I can volunteer as a facilitator for that.
Do you see what I'm saying? and this is real because in other industries, they've got it. And like, for example, you find incredible producers who've been in the industry for 12 years, and yet they get treated the same way as someone who's been in this industry for 2 years. And it's just not right.
It's not.
And then in terms of where the money flows, what's been beautiful about this demonstration is that we've also got people coming out of the woodwork. And we're realizing now that actually there are people that have set up systems that allow us to interface with Treasury, interface with banks, so that people can actually verify where the money goes. Now, people that are unscrupulous are not going to like this because what these companies are doing, we found 2 companies already that have got whole platforms that go from production, pre-production, production, post, and reporting that have got interfaces with banks where you can actually get a proof of payment based on what the app is able to produce. Now, what that means that I, as Wandile, I can get my 15 million from DTIC. The DTIC can then see where that 50 million has gone and then release my final milestone. And they can release my other milestones along the line because, guys, it's 2026.
There's enough technology to enable all of these
This is all AI. We don't have to have this hand delivery of documents anymore. And so to prevent people from stealing money, we're saying, guys, that happened maybe in the 90s. Now we have to get to a point where we can actually say a proof of payment.
Well, you can track the money.
100%. And this is not deep. This is not like break the bank stuff.
For me, it feels like even with the submission of papers, the reason why people could steal money and do all of that is because there were no proper reporting.
100%.
Do you understand?
100%.
Somebody can go and fabricate invoices.
Yeah.
There's once you submit the report, the DTIC is supposed to audit your report. There's no such. They can't because they've got 6 people.
Exactly. And this
the structures of the DTIC, I think I support the 35 people, and I still feel it's kusasekuncane because there's supposed to be the team that approves, that receives and vets the applications and the approvals and the what. And then there's the auditing team that deals with the auditing. Then there's the people that when they're supposed to visit you on set.
The truth is that right now with AI, with the Copyright Amendment Bill, the Performance Amendment Bill, the entry of all these streamers, in the last maybe 5 years, we've had Netflix, Disney+, Amazon, and all these little streamers that are starting up, independent streamers that are launching in the back streets. We need to be really careful with our IP. And the truth is that there's also, on a positive note, there's no better time to be a content creator right now. We've got the youngest population on the planet. Africa is just is primed to grow at an incredible rate. Hence, you're seeing the Russians, the Chinese, the Americans all fighting for us because we are the gold mine that they want to untap.
We are very skilled. We are very talented.
Yes.
We are rich in cultural and heritage currency.
Yes.
We have so many stories to tell. We have the facilities. We have, like you said, the weather is great for filmmaking in South Africa.
Come on.
The locations are beautiful. I mean, we've shot Italy, streets of Italy in Main Street, downtown Joburg.
Yep. We can double parts of the rainforest in the Tsitsikamma forest. We can double New York in parts of Sandton. The options that South Africa's got. Sorry, just an aside. There's a very exciting report that's been done by SA Tourism called Stages. I'm hoping that it's going to come out soon because what SA Tourism has done is that they've actually looked at the economic impact of shooting South Africa for another place and how actually it can drive tourism to our continent and our country. So yeah, man, I think in closing, I want to just say that I don't want to be a doomsday, but I want to be very honest. You know, the amount of engagement that all practitioners need to do at a policy level is going to be hectic over the next 4 years. And if we don't pay attention, I think some people would have seen on Instagram, there was a clip that was released of Russell Crowe, Brad Pitt, and someone else in his Gladiator, Troy, what's this one? Sparta, right? And they literally had remade the scenes. Now, that was a massive copyright infringement. That was like I don't know how they actually got that onto a social media platform. But the point is that very soon there'll be
Sometimes it's
programs
easier to
doubling.
get forgiveness than permission, but I don't say
you
that.
know, yo, man, I'm just like South African talent, and this is not just actors. This is DOPs. This is musicians. We need to start being very vocal in terms of protecting our IP, because, like you're saying, the new gold mine now is our IP. People are tired of hearing about New York. People are tired of hearing about Wisconsin and Minnesota. They want to hear about what's happening in the Congo, what's happening in KZN. That's where the interest is now. I mean, Ryan Coogler is going to do a Mansa Mara biopic, you know, and it's going to be incredible. And of course, he's got the budget, and so it's going to be incredible. But the point is that our stories are becoming relevant. And if we don't start protecting our IP,
we have to.
and
we need to start telling our own stories.
Correct.
And not have Hollywood tell our own stories. Well, Wandile, this has been a great and insightful conversation. One last thought for me, is how does Bratemba Go Grips get involved? Bratemba can't even write, but he knows the equipment like nobody's business. In fact, he is so talented that he has even built his own grips gear.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But Bratemba, that production has to do invoices for Bratemba because Bratemba cannot read or write, right? But he is that brilliant. How does he get involved in all of this? Joining organization, being vocal, all of that. How do we, as the people who have the can and the know-how, how do we support them and be there for them? I
think for me, it's the, and if I can be very honest, is the you like put a mirror up to my face to say, yes, Ralutla IPO, we hear you, Sasfed, but you guys aren't on the ground. And I think there's been a bit of a disconnect in that regard. We need to actually start advocating and marketing. I know that sounds like a dirty word to say, but marketing to crew. Because the reality is that Bratemba is not going to know about us if we don't actually make ourselves known. And the reason why it's important to get Bratemba is that, and this is what's great about the professionalization we're trying to do as the IPO, is that there is such a wealth of knowledge there. And if we can find a way to whittle down what he knows into a course pack, we can then go to the Department of Education and say, guys, there's a course pack on grips. Do you realize that that being knowing what a peewee dolly is and knowing how to make a C-stand, there is IP that's vested in this guy's body. And if we can then put a case study together of Bratemba is one of many. And we need to start documenting this stuff, guys, because I'm telling you, if we don't do it, someone else is going to do it. And in all likelihood, it's going to be anyway, let me not go there. We need to do it because and this is the thing about set, and this is what really encouraged Minister Dow, is that the amount of skills transfer we do on a set, it's almost like we're like a little TVET college that moves. You know, one day we're the TVET college in Randburg, next we're in Cape Town. We're mobile TVET colleges, and that is bankable.
You're
that
taking
is something
me
government
somewhere
needs.
else. I know we're supposed to wrap this episode up. There was a time where on a production, right, I took interns. And I was like, come intern on this production, specifically for this skills transfer and upskilling. And I didn't have budget because the broadcaster was like, it's at your expense. I did approach some province and the person who I was collaborating with in the province, the Eastern Cape, let me name it, my hometown.
Yes.
The person had to fight. They really fought. They were able to scrape up 5,000 rand a month per intern. And I think we had like 6 interns. 5,000 rand a month for them to earn. And then I had to find ways of feeding them. But if we had support structures for such things, incentivize production companies
100%.
for, enable the production companies, Department of Arts and Culture, whichever department, to say, okay, production, you are doing Shaga Ilembe, for example. I'm going to give you 20 interns, right? Out of the 20 interns, this is the skills output that I need for you. And this is the stipends that you can pay them so that it does not come out of your already limited budget that you got from the broadcaster, because the broadcaster has no responsibility or obligation towards upskilling the
Yes.
industry. They are a business, and so is film. Film is a business,
Yes.
and we need to start treating it like that. And
Correct.
the mindset towards what we do of it being a business should start at our level first, and with the legislators and government, etc., so that all of this support comes through. In other countries, I learned recently in Nigeria, you can go to the bank and take a loan to do a film.
Yes, you can. They've got entertainment banks in Nigeria. They've got entertainment banks in Nigeria. I mean, you know, I think I use the example of, because my father's he's a farmer. And one of the things that's going to be important about the advocacy work we're all going to do over the next 5 years is that, so you can get an actual person who gets paid by the government to go and work on a farm. Now, I know we've all heard how proud CR is of the stone fruit that is being exported to China, and we're very happy for Steenhuisen. We're not, no beef. I got no beef for Steenhuisen. It's great that he's done that. But we are trying to present an actual case.
Exporting our stories?
Yes.
Why are we not?
We are saying to them,
America has
guys,
sold us the dream, the standards.
Yes.
And they invest in their arts. America invests in the arts.
But this is the thing that's crazy, that, you know, you can actually get a TVET student to come and do soil tests and come and be the horticulturalist on your farm. Why can't we get them on a film set? There's no reason why you can't, because there is a skill that's being transferred. That's why Upra Temba. It's so important, and I think this is the thing about documentation.
Building your own gear is engineering.
Come on. And it's such a practical skill. Like we were saying to Minister Kodlimbi, that, you know, the growth path of someone in agriculture is not really that exponential. If you're a grape picker, you're kind of going to be a grape picker for a long time. In film, you can start as a prop standby. And within 5 or 10 years, you can be the production designer. That's skilling. That's upskilling of people.
Yes.
And we're saying to the government, we're saying to everyone who will catch listen, that we need to start getting actual proper frameworks that monitor that. SDL, for example, is one of the biggest costs for black producers. And we're saying that surely there's a way for the DTIC to then help us do this
with
SDL.
the skills development levy.
I mean, it's what we do on set. Like when you have a DOP saying, pass me that C-stand, you are learning something. When you have someone saying, you know, call time for the cast is 3:30, you're learning that, okay, which would 2, because you're starting to learn the operations of a film. Now, this is a skill that's being transferred, and we're saying this far and no further, that skills transfer must be recorded, measured, but we also want to get paid for it.
Yes, please, and thank you. In the words of Sheldon Cooper, thus far and no further. It's a wrap. Thank you for coming through.
Thank you so much.
I love the conversation. Thank you so much. We look forward to what the industry is going to do going forward. And like Wandile said, let us get involved, people.
Yes.
Let's get involved. Let's be a collective voice. Sizwagaleni sonke, and let's be professional about what let's treat ourselves as seriously as we want everybody else to treat us.
Guys, we're 117 billion rand sector, and we it's scary how unserious we take ourselves. We need to demand seriousness, and we're gonna get it. We're gonna get it.